So basically, this album, my forthcoming album, Sonic Apothecary, was born basically out of a need to self-medicate at the beginning of the lockdown, the first lockdown that we had in the UK. And as soon as we hit, it was suddenly, like, okay, no more tour, no more live performances, and no more musical interactions. And suddenly it was just me and my piano. And I thought, okay, well, let's just be creative and productive and find different ways to interact. And, you know, wonderfully, we do actually have the technology available to us where we can still find ways to interact with people. And so, even though it was nice to have that connection, the technology to do virtual concerts and speak to people, there was still a connection. Um, but at the same time, there was the ability to communicate and to heal. But there, nothing beats the energy of what happens in the room between the audience and the performer. And so I started looking inward, and like everybody else, started thinking more about, okay, well, what are the important things? And of course, I experienced insomnia for the first time properly in my life as well. And music became my meditation. I mean, it's always has been, but in a different way this time. And I started writing in quite a different way than I had before. I've always been interested in creating multisensory experiences for my audiences. So that's live shows, they're very dynamic, and love to take them to Asia. My family are from Hong Kong and from China, and so it's really nice to be able to go back and um, and experience that culture too, and also and and learn about traditional Chinese medicine at the same time, and how they're so ahead. For thousands of years they've been using music as a vital therapeutic tool. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's something that I really recognized for the first time as I was creating music, that my music began to shift in a way. Not to say that I've stopped writing in the different genres that I have, but this time was very interesting, and I used the opportunity to continue to explore that genre. And friends and family who were asking me for um, musical playlists for their teething babies, or for their friends or family, or suddenly they couldn't go to their working studios and they were having frustrating times being creative at home. So I was sending them music. So I created a private playlist just for them. And then after some feedback and realizing that a lot of this music had helped them in many ways, I began to look deeper into it. And I really wanted to just start finding out, what is it that the music I'm creating now, how is that helping me? How can I define and pinpoint what it is? The style has changed, the genre has changed, the timbre has changed. I mean, it's gone in a different direction, but what is it that's helping them either sleep, helping them with their anxiety? What is it that's helping me? And so anyway, I began on this journey, and of course I started talking to friends in the neuroscience and experts in anxiety, started working with a company who collect AI data and human data, to which helps predict emotional states that music, quality kind of music, can do for them. And then I just went on this journey. I just went on this journey about music and the brain, and I became really fascinated. And I'm only scratching the surface now, but I really love to know more. And so it's really a great privilege to be able to meet you and speak with you, and I can't wait to ask you lots of questions.
That's so wonderful. It's really nice meeting you, Rosie. It's really wonderful to hear all the things that you're doing and the excitement. And also, thank you for the support. I know that this journey started for you as a personal journey, but to bring it out to the world and be able to have that mission and join the World Sleep Society in the mission to help people sleep better. It's wonderful. So I really want to thank you for joining us in this effort and sharing our mission. I am from Peru. I was born in Peru and I moved to the United States at the age of 18. And then I did all my medical training here. I have been discovering different areas of medicine similar. I think we always are learning. And I started my career in medicine in family practice, and then I started focusing on sleep, and then started focusing on pediatric sleep, and then restless sleep. So it's just it sounds like we're learning more, but it feels like we're narrowing on something, but at the same time expanding. And I'm also fascinated about the way our brain works, and brain circuits, neurotransmitters develop and connect, and and the plasticity of the brain just keep changing and adapting. It was very interesting to hear your experience with COVID, because we had a similar experience at the beginning, the very first months after the lockdown. We started seeing that everybody started sleeping at their own schedule. Like children would sleep like from midnight to 9 or 10 o'clock. And then we thought, well, this is great. All the sleep problems are going to be cured just by staying home and sleeping at live. And then a couple of months later, we started realizing that no, we are having a different situation now. We're having stress and anxiety and sleep disruption, and it is not the same to be surviving or living through a pandemic lockdown and trying to keep a regular sleep schedule than in your regular lifestyle. So I echo what you're saying, in that this experience that you are sharing is echoed by a lot of other people, and people are starting to resource to learn about what can help their sleep.
Yeah, no, thank you. I absolutely agree. I've just also noticed a huge shift. People finally, they're starting to pivot now just because they have the quietness. I mean, I've been very good. I've been isolating, so I've had the quietness, and I've been isolating alone for the last 3 months. So it's given me the quietness, or let's say the sanctuary, but I don't know what you would call it, if it's a positive or negative thing, but but it's definitely given me the space to think about how to pivot and how to improve my general well-being. And the more I know, the more I realize I don't know, and it's a great learning curve, and I'm really fascinated by it. And I have a lot of friends who are really, really suffering right now. And so I try to pass on bits of information as I begin to understand it. And of course, I realize there are so many different variables. There's diet, there's like the different routines, the wind down routines, and understanding circadian rhythms. I've been like experiment guinea pigging on myself, trying to reset my own circadian rhythm. And like a lot of these little things that I hadn't realized, I've been passing on to friends in my circles who've had insomnia for years, and it's so I'm like testing like different kinds of pieces of music for them, because some of them I've deliberately had them analyzed by, and they're all science backed, let's say. And so I've had them all analyzed, and um, various like activation levels taken down, because I'm always I when I write, it's very intuitive. I don't think of it like in a very technical way. Just it's emotion based. And so the more knowledge I have on this on this subject has been interesting, because I can approach it in a more refined way, and I can kind of envisage, oh, activations too much here. Is it like the higher frequencies that are causing people to perhaps activate them or stimulate them too much? When I listen to Philip Glass, it's very soothing. It's very, a lot of it's in the central part of the keyboard, and I try and understand, what is it about this? Is it the rhythm? Is it like, because it's very modal? Is it, what is it exactly that creates this state of relaxation and well-being? But also what I like about the work that you're doing is that you look at all the other things, like you look at the lifestyle. It's not just about sleep. Everybody says you've got to get a good night's sleep, but I feel like the message in order to promote what can also help a good night's sleep, like it could be presented in a different way, that we're all so busy. We're all so busy to be looking into what is it that we can do that's easy to sneak into our daily routines and fit in, whether it's like 2 minutes here or 7 minutes of qigong, or understanding that in order to reset your circadian rhythm you could just go outside for 2 minutes. I mean, you tell me if this is correct. I don't know, but I have read that even between 2 minutes to 8 minutes of just having the light hit your eyes early in the morning between a certain time, that you can reset your circadian rhythm, even if you're not going to go for a run or anything. Because sometimes during the lockdown I thought, well, I'm just I don't know if I want to go out for a run. I live in the center of London and it's very busy here, so sometimes I think I don't want to go out for a run because it's the weekend and I know it's going to be very, very busy I live right on the canal and it's very peaceful. But then the canal is like a very narrow canal. Normally fits two people, but instead at the weekend is like six people trying to fit into a two people towpath. So I'm thinking, no, you know what? I'd rather be at home and do a live yoga Zoom but I didn't realize until not too long ago that all I had to do was go outside for 2 minutes and have the light hit my eyes, which would have helped me get a better night's sleep. So I've been passing that message on. I'm like, go and test this out. Apparently, this is really. So it's all those like little things. What are the tiny little things that you can do? Trying to understand what is it that defines a good night's sleep and a quality night's sleep, and what are the differences between them? Because I understand that it's not to do with duration. Sometimes I sleep for 4 hours, but it could have been much better quality sleep than my 8 hours sleep, and I would have been better at memorizing thousands of notes at the piano. So I'm really curious to know what your feedback on that is.
Yeah, well, we have data and we are looking into what makes for a good night's sleep. And of course, as sleep physicians, we always recommend the duration, to have adequate duration, because sleep deprivation can have a lot of consequences besides being sleepy the next day. But we want to start with asking patients if they are sleeping an adequate amount of time. But most also important, equally important as the duration, is the quality. So if we have restless sleep or interrupted sleep with awakenings, or with a lot of with a sleep disorder, breathing, so we want to have a good amount of sleep. So we recommend a regular amount of sleep that varies per age, to obtain a good night's rest. So that's where we start. We start by analyzing, or just asking the parent or the patient how much time they're sleeping at night. And we know that sleep deprivation, even if it's for a couple of hours, in the long run can have a lot of significant adverse effects, including our immune system, which is so important now, or response to vaccines. But also, we're looking into the quality of sleep. We are realizing, and there are studies from different backgrounds that are seeing how interrupted sleep, just either REM or non-REM sleep, the phases of sleep, can adversely affect the benefits of sleep. So we study that each component of sleep, or time or phase, has benefits, some for healing, some from hormone production, some for memory consolidation. And having an interrupted sleep can affect any of those areas. So this is why it's so fascinating, because we can't just put it in one answer, and to say, if we have less amount of sleep, we're going to be sleepy the next day, or we have cardiovascular effects. But we're also seeing that even in the early stages of development, we can have memory consolidation, executive function, we can have just reasoning, speed of reaction, and also interference with inhibition control, like when we look for attention, understanding. So all the benefits overall in the things that we consider key for success in people, like the ability to focus, the ability to excel, to be awake, to be energetic, go beyond the medical adverse effects that we already knew for years in terms of cardiovascular diabetes. So it's kind of like a longer answer for your question, but I think that we need to look at several aspects of sleep. And in the World Sleep Society, we have it delineated as three main aspects: so duration and depth, and also quality.
Mm. And what are your recommendations for quality sleep?
Well, we usually, as a physician, so from the physician point of view, we want to ensure most of the time people come because there is a problem. So we want to know what is causing that regular or irregular sleep, that sleep disruption. So we want to first rule out, I shouldn't say first rule out, but we first assess if there is a medical condition or psychiatric condition, like you were mentioning, anxiety, depression. If there are other effects, like social effects, like we were just hearing the noise in the background. So social issues, living in the middle of a really loud, noisy city, or the opposite, living in isolation and being concerned about certain situations like that. So social aspects, medications, medical conditions, psychiatric conditions on the periphery of the medical conditions, and then we focus to see if the patient has a sleep disorder. If there is no sleep disorder, and is a temporary condition like stress can cause disturbed sleep, we try to assess stress. But also, it could be a sleep disorder in terms of what you were mentioning, insomnia. And we want to have all behavioral cognitive modifications and an assessment of treatment options.
Mm, mm. No, I just think it's so interesting. It's like I feel like, especially at this time, is there like
Yes.
um, is there like I mean, so many people are, they're either very lonely or that or they're suffering from anxiety and or they're going crazy because they're homeschooling, etc., etc. I just think, what are the like simple things that they can incorporate into their wind down schedule?
Right. I think you bring up a great point because in when we diagnose a chronic condition, we usually consider 3 months to be the landmark for a chronic condition. And now we are 1 year into the lockdown, right? So everybody has undergo beyond what we would consider the 3 months. So if you're having a sleep problem associated with COVID, it is insomnia. It qualifies for our diagnostic criteria because the sleep disruption has been going on for over 3 months based on our own guidelines of what is considered a chronic sleep disorder.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. You know, I wanted to share with you, there was an article that I found that I wanted to read a little bit about music and how it contributes to improving sleep, or it can contribute to improving sleep. So I found this article in the Sleep Medicine Journal. It's a very recent article in 2019, and it brings some um, possible ways by which music can help sleep. And one of those is relaxation. So this is probably what you have been already experiencing with the people around you or the feedback that you get. Another one that I find interesting is distraction, because sometimes our own thoughts are our worst enemy. And when we go to bed, that's the time when we start ruminating on all the things that worry us, or we turn off the TV, and that's where we are hearing the news and we get worried about things that happen. So one of the mechanisms by which a music intervention can be helpful is by distracting you from what is happening in the world or inside your own thoughts. Entertaining, synchronizing of biological rhythms, which is what one of the things that you were saying, with your circadian rhythm. So it's synchronizing with your biological rhythm that this is time to be winding down, maybe. um, Masking, so obscuring the unwanted noises that you may have if you live in a noisy neighborhood. enjoyment because you start going back. Like for me, for example, sometimes I go back to a song that I liked 20 years ago, and then it's very relaxing. An expectation based on cultural beliefs. Some people have already the expectation that music is going to be helpful. So I wanted to share that. I don't know if you're aware of this paper, but I can share it with you. And I would love to know
Please.
your
Yeah.
thoughts if you found that any of these six aspects were some that you're seeing results or feedback from um, people that listen to to your music.
Yeah, no, please. That would be wonderful. I from what I've been from really interesting conversations I've been having, my understanding is that instrumental music is something that has been most effective for something like insomnia. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm still testing it and asking my friends to be guinea pigs and also trying different timbres and different genres, slightly different genres. And I guess as a creative, as a composer and a pianist, a lot of what I think I speak for a lot of artists is that what we strive to achieve is um, almost like a state of sleep, because that is when, as you said, a lot of neuroactivity goes on and it helps with your memory. And um, I know that like I'm able to I had less sleep last night than I did the night before. However, today I was sight reading a piece of music, a Chopin concerto, which I hadn't looked at in some time. I sight read a few bars yesterday and I just could not strike the keys. And I'm a really good sight reader. So normally I can read very fast and very, in this part of my enjoyment, I keep one foot in the classical world where I try to record one concerto a year. And so I thought, well, I love this concerto. I wanted to record it for a long time. So I was reading through it. But then yesterday, I was surprised. Last night, I had maybe 4 to 5 hours sleep. And today, and I woke up refreshed, and I was able to strike every single note on like the 5 pages I was reading, and I thought this is just wonderful. And to the point where, there was so much going on. I had quite an emotional, like an array of emotions yesterday, and then like in the morning. But I sat down and I literally just sat for an hour and almost like I was just light as a feather. I was just floating away into my own musical bubble. That it was like a meditation, and I'm aware of all the little things that I could do, like the yin yoga. Anything I can do to help my liver, because I know that is where creativity comes from. And so yeah, so the research I've been doing is been quite interesting to understand that classical music has been the most researched, from my understanding, um, to help induce those different states of relaxation and sleep. And it was interesting to learn that words, something with lyrics, wasn't going to be as effective as pure instrumental sounds. So I was curious to know what you thought of that too. Like, if it is it because it acts as a different part of the brain, the instrumental, rather than the lyrics? Because I know when I listen to my favorite songs with lyrics, I distract myself. I get more stimulated because I want to sing along with those songs, and then I associate them with happy memories and I start drifting. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe because I'm a musician, I don't know, I want to join in and I start singing, and I just want to think of the words. Or if I forget the words, I'm like, oh, I must, I'm really, really stimulated by that. Whereas when I listen to instrumental music, I do feel a little bit more calm. And what I'm trying to achieve with this current album and the albums after that are, it's not like easily listening massage kind of music that I'm trying to achieve. It's, my music is more complicated than that. But at the same time, it comes from, I'd like to think that it comes from a place that has been well researched and as optimized as possible. And in the future, I'd like to think, I definitely want to understand and learn more so that I can be, um, and ride the wave and be on the at the forefront of yeah, figuring out how we can be a step closer to musically medicating people, let's say. So
Yeah. So I find it fascinating. I did read an article too that I'll be happy to share. But we need more research. You have mentioned it. We really need a lot more research, formal research. There are a few articles on music in sleep and music in medicine. But one that caught my attention was that I think that there were over 500 participants, and 62%, don't quote me exactly, maybe we'll get the right quote from the article, but about 60% mentioned that music was helpful. But what they found out was that the categories of music were really diverse. So I would be really interested in knowing what the future research brings, because in my personal experience, I think sleep is very personalized. And what we want to do with a lot of our patients is more precision medicine to see what works for you in particular. And because we know that there may be a large group of people that a particular intervention works and benefits, and a different large group of people that the opposite of that intervention can also kind of work benefit. And we go by the majority, but we try to really assess in a personal basis what helps you and maybe why. And in that sense, there may be some patients that are helped by a certain type of music, while others may be helped by a different type of music. We have sometimes parents that, well, all parents come for every patient in the pediatric sleep center. Every patient has to come with an adult parent, with a parent. And what we have had in the past, or what I've seen in the past, is that sometimes children tend to sleep better in the sleep study center. Sometimes, not all the time, because we have all the wires and everything, but sometimes they tend to sleep better. And the parents take note about the temperature and the lighting and the weight of the blanket, and if it is a background noise. So and they learn, and sometimes they take tips on what can help. So my opinion is, I am completely personal opinion, not scientifically based, but I feel that we need to explore more on a personal basis what is what people what help people. And I feel that some people may be helped by certain kinds of music without lyrics, or others with certain kind of music with lyrics. So I would be really excited to know in your future compositions if you find this as well, that if you could because I have seen your work, and I have seen the imagery that you put in your presentations, and I think that it will be really interesting to see if that helps some people as well when the music is a little bit more stronger or different than classical music, or when the imagery behind can stimulate certain areas of the brain, and we may have a different type of population that helps. That would be interesting to know.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it's almost like we need, because there are so many variables. I just wish there was like a special hamper that you could have, like a sleep hamper of all these different things and different tools, like one which is for music, a little like thing
Right.
candles, something that like a little guideline that kind of shows, like I've been just trying to understand whether the screen, whether the blue blockers actually do they work, the blue light blockers.
I recommend them. I've seen, again, this is not my area of research or expertise, but I've seen them work, and I recommend them. I use them myself too when I'm on call and I have to wake up in the middle of the night. I'm blocking all the blue lights on my electronics if I have to get up.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm trying that, and then also I'm aware of, like, even though the lights, they're not screens, but I'm just trying to dim down all the lights in every room before I, at least 3 hours before bed. I'm trying a wind down routine, which I'd never done until the beginning of this year. And it is interesting to feel like now I don't have to have an alarm clock to wake me up, which is the first time ever. And I can wake up naturally, which is just, it's an amazing revelation to myself. And I have candles on, so I have like the scents, all the things I can do to get a step closer to get a better night's sleep. Because I've realized that you can't just, like, if you have an exam or something, you can't just cram everything the night before. You're not going to retain that information long term. I don't remember anything from my GCSE exams or the periodic table or my algebraic equations now anymore because I crammed the night before. How can I expect to remember all of that stuff? And as a musician, I do need to remember notes. And, I compose mostly now, but still, as I said, I want to be able to record one big classical work a year. And I want to have a block of reading the sheet music. I like to memorize all these things and properly, not just with the muscle memory.
So for
Um,
you, it's more working memory. Is the fact that you have that knowledge, but you do it without the having to recall it. It's a working memory. Like you are performing your music almost in a semi-automatic way. So it is a different type of memory. It is not the semantic memory that we recall that this is in the periodic table, but it is a working memory. And yes, definitely, we have evidence that sleep works both in semantic and working memory. So it is really fascinating to know that you can try to learn everything that what you're saying, like to do a procedure, but if you go to sleep, that memory will be moved during sleep period. That what you have learned will be moved to an area that will be more of an acting, like it will be moved from your semantic memory, which is your hippocampus, to your cortex, which will be just acting like your working memory, part
mm,
of just working and functioning on what you have learned. So imagine, sometimes I think I see these really bright children. We do sometimes the whole neuropsychological testing and QI, and we see these children that are really bright and excel in all their psychological testing, and yet they have broken sleep and they have this interrupted sleep. And I always think of myself, how much better can someone, this little brain is that is developing, how much better, how much more talented, how much gifted this person is going to be? Because I believe firmly that our role in sleep medicine is not just to diagnose and treat disorders. Yes, that is a big part of our role, but also to help people achieve their full potential, and recognizing that sleep is a big component. So when we are gifted, or you are gifted, and are able to produce this wonderful music, imagine how much with a perfect sleep, with a perfect night of sleep.
I know it's incredible to like finally recognize that, because prior to all of this, we were running around, we're jumping on planes with this, not enough time to kind of recognize it. And because sleep is something that we do anyway, it's kind of like you kind of automatically think, well, I don't know, for a lot of people, I think they just assume, well, things just happen when you sleep, and they don't really think about the elements that can help give you your quality. They don't really analyze it in the way that you're explaining. It's only like times like now where you're forced to really look at your patterns. And for me personally, I realized how much more effective I've become just after a good quality night's sleep, even if it was the duration was shorter than before or interrupted. So it's just really, really interesting. I have a question to ask you. What if you can't get to sleep, not because of anything negative or stress or anxiety, but what if, I'd like to understand more about if you're so overly stimulated because maybe you're excited about something, or maybe your creative brain just does not want to shut down. um what can you do to, because I also know on the flip side, including myself, which was one of the problems why I couldn't, well, I think it was a range of emotions, but sometimes, yes, it is from overstimulation and excitement at goodness. It's almost like starting from a clean slate. There are so many creative possibilities. I'm having to learn so much, and selfie production, how to gaffers tape metal poles together so I can selfie myself video from over the piano, or gracefully fall off piano stools, and lighting, camera, action, all those things that I suddenly need to think about and do myself, which is been very rewarding because I'm learning so much and and then as I'm learning, I feel that I've also become more effective. It's definitely, although it was a lot of it was frustrating at the beginning, it's definitely fed into what I do and helped me understand the bigger picture as to what I'm doing, and it's helped me evolve. I feel like definitely I've evolved at a very fast pace even in the last 2 or 3 months, just because I've just learned, had to acquire so many new skills, because I can't have an assistant come over now. I can't have like, you know, a camera crew or help me or anything like that. So it's like, okay, let's just be really self-sufficient. And it has stimulated me in a positive way. Um, so what advice do you have for someone that is so stimulated creatively and positively and then they can't sleep?
I think we all have been in that situation in different areas. I think there's. I always tell my parents, my patients, that sometimes we can do all of these interventions and our brain is just gonna hijack everything because it's going to just be either so excited or so stressed, and it happens to everyone, even when people could have a really stressful situation on the opposite of being really excited and stimulated. But if you have a really stressful situation, and I think we can all share this experience, that we can take something to sleep and we are so stressed, or our brain is just not really letting that work, that pill. So I think part of it is that we do get a lot of reward from the things that we do and that we love, and that reward gets into our brain and it's a circle, right? Like there's an area in our brain called the amygdala, and we work with that reward system, stimulating our the rest of our functions. So when we do something that is really exciting, our brain is really active, stimulated, our focus, our attention, everything, and our reward system feedbacks on that system. And the challenge with sleep is that it is not something that we can see immediately with a reward system like that. It is something that we see it in the longer term, like on the next day or the day or two. Because as what you said, I can perform that piece better. I can remember the notes better. I have that working memory that I don't even have to make an effort remember. It just flows when you get a good night's sleep. So I think that this is what it is so important, the role of the World Sleep Society and sponsors and people that join our mission, like you, Rosie, to really spread around the importance of sleep, that you may not get that immediate reward, but you know that it is for the best benefit, for the health, for the next day. So and then you start educating your mind and your brain that this is what is important and this is important for health. I have been learning lately a lot about clearance of toxic substances and the development of degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and
Mm,
the contribution of sleep to the clearance of toxic substances in the brain. So for me, I am a night owl. I stay late doing my research and collecting my data, writing my papers, and I'm just like that. I'm really excited about finishing a project. But just that thought of thinking I need to really give my brain the rest that it needs to clear all that toxic substances that are accumulating and to have a healthy aging that is going to happen to all of us. So we have to look in that direction to say, well, I want to have a healthy, successful aging. And this is going to be a slower, less immediate rewarding process, but slower process. If
mm,
you allow me, I'm going to take a parenthesis because we have a quote that Alan just shared it with me about Dr. Mooring staying. He's an expert in insomnia, and when he talks about particularly insomnia, since the beginning of the pandemic, there has been a dramatically increase in insomnia, along with significant increase in stress and anxiety. And it is important to take care of others, but it's also important to take care of oneself and make sure to schedule time to relax, to enjoy pleasurable and relaxing activities, especially before bedtime. So for some, it may be music, reading, mindfulness. The important thing is to make time, to be aware that there is a need of your body for these pleasurable and relaxing activities in the evening, to make that disconnection from the daytime activities and prepare oneself for a good night's sleep. Dr. Morin, just in case you want to include this quote again, Dr. Morin Also mentioned that CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is the treatment of choice for chronic insomnia, but people should not wait that an acute sleep problem turn into a chronic one. They need to be proactive and do just what we were sharing and do what they can to maintain a good regular sleep schedule, plan to relax before bedtime to get adequate amount of daylight exposure, and seek this on their own for a while. But if the problem persists, they should seek professional help from an expert in CBTI. Dr. Morin also mentions that there's three elements of good sleep, like what we were mentioned before. The duration, which is the length of sleep, should be sufficient for the sleeper to be rested and alert, but also continuity, which is the periods should be seamless without fragmentation, and the depth, which sleep should be deep enough to be restorative.
That's good. I'm also wondering how studied has this been, the 90-minute cycles that I keep reading about, is that if you're going to sleep, then try and, like, a friend of mine first suggested this to me. I was in China and I had serious jet lag that time, and I had a lot of like personal stress that was going on, and we were traveling, and the only place that we could meet up, because we were both so busy, was at the airport, because we both had flights that, by coincidence, around the same time to different places. So we said, fantastic, we will grab tea at the airport and catch up. And he had just been doing some studies into sleep. He's also a musician. And at the time, I was, I was just so, I was not even thinking about it. I said, I know I need 8 hours sleep and then I'm fine. And he said, but why, who told you that? Why do you think you only need 8 hours sleep? I said, because I seem to feel okay after 8 hours sleep. And so he said, can you do me a favor and try either increasing that by 1 hour to get it to 9? Oh no, he said, he'd try and get it to 6. Yeah, either 3, 6, or 9. And I said, why? And then he tried to explain it to me, and it stuck in my mind. And only recently I've been revisiting why that is again, and also understanding that when you're trying to do a task, to try to keep it to 90 minutes and you take a break because your brain can't function at full capacity throughout that entire 90 minutes. So when I start writing or composing, I do notice I start drift, especially like when I'm trying to write in this therapeutic style. I do go into the state that it's almost like meditative, and I do feel like I need a break after 30 to 50 minutes or something. And so I've tried to start doing the 20-minute break after my scheduled 90 minutes to see how I feel, or see if it can invigorate more energy if I want to come back to it later.
Well, so you're talking about the 90 minutes during wakefulness, like on the activities that you're doing without taking a break? Or
Mm.
you're doing about this cycle of 90 minutes sleep, going through non-REM and REM sleep? I think we started talking about that and then
Yeah,
we went
it's
on to this.
sleep first and then concentration. So subconscious, so sleep first, and then like when you're awake. Um, and also I'm curious about siestas, how effective they are.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually, so let me see if I understand your question. So is the first question, how did the amount of sleep that we need come
Yeah, like
along, or?
is there a recommended amount of sleep? Does it have to go within that 90-minute circle? Like you have to do 3 times 90, or um to get quality sleep? Like is
Right.
8 hours, is irregular, is that not recommended to do 8 hours or 10 hours? Is it better to do 3, 6, or 9?
Right. So what we recommend, I think both societies are in accord, like the American Academy and the World Sleep Society. It's that sleep should be continuous and should be at least for adults 7 hours a night. Now, naps, on the other hand, is better to recover your sleep. Like, for example, in the situation that you were mentioning with jet lag and you haven't slept, but you have to do another performance or have to go and give a concert, it is better to take a brief nap, that not nap at all, like a little power nap. And sometimes what we have found out is because of that cycle of 90 minutes, if you take a longer nap and you wake up in the middle of deep sleep, you may actually not feel that refreshed. You may
Mm.
feel a little bit groggy. And if you take a 20-minute nap and you wake up before going into deep sleep, then it may be a refreshing nap that will get you going for the next 2 or 3 hours.
And would you set your alarm for something like that?
Sorry?
Would you set your alarm for something like that to make sure you wake up after 20 minutes?
Oh yes, or an alarm. Yes, yeah, with
Mm-hmm.
an alarm. If you sometimes if you wake up after like a 90 minutes or 1 hour 2 hours, sometimes what happens is you go into deep sleep, and when you wake up you have what we call sleep inertia, which is a little bit of grogginess, a little bit because your brain is waking up from deep sleep.
Mm.
Yeah. The other problem with napping is and not having the regular sleep at night is that we talked about the circadian regulation of sleep, like our clock and our regular circadian timing. But there is another process that regulates sleep, which is the pressure to go to sleep, which is more the longer that we are awake. And that is called the homeostatic process. During the time that we're awake, we accumulate these substances in our brain that are sleep promoting. And when we take a nap in the middle of the day, we deplete our brain from the sleep promoting substances. And that's why sometimes we take a nap at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and when we try to go to sleep again, we can't, because we have to have enough time after 5 or 6 o'clock when we wake up from our nap to accumulate these substances to be able to feel sleepy again.
Mm. Okay, so when is the optimum time you should take a 20-minute nap?
Or I would say earlier in the afternoon, like would be like 3 or 4 o'clock, before, not too close to your bedtime, because then it can push your bedtime later.
Mm, mm.
So if you're gonna take a nap, take it before 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I know. How is the schedule in London? Because I have always been surprised when I traveled to Europe. The last time I was in Spain, dinner was at 10 o'clock at night, and that is very late for us here. Is it in London the same way?
That's why I love going to Spain. um, no, here, no, it's, I mean, everything closes when it's normal. It closes much earlier. So that's normally like that's normally like last orders time. But here, I mean, for me, I like to generally eat early. I like to like have the time to like digest everything, and I don't really like to eat on a full stomach unless I'm going to stay up really late, you know. So of course, if I'm away, I'm abroad or something, everything goes upside down, and I like to enjoy the evenings for much longer. I am also a night owl, so I can. The danger is that, you know, I can go on until whatever time. When I was studying at the Royal College of Music, the practice rooms were open 24/7, and I think that was not a very I understand why they were. They were clearly accommodating for people with very different time clocks. Um, but that only encouraged me to go there at 2 in the morning. And I think, oh, well, they're open 24/7. So, you know, naively thinking, well, I'll just practice from 2 in the morning, and, you know, I'll kind of like do everything I need to do and then start at 2 and finish at 6. And then maybe I go and have 4 or 5 hours sleep. And then I go to my classes, etc., etc. Um, Now I try and have much more of a routine, and I enjoy having much more of a routine. And now that, as you said, the more that you learn, the more you can pinpoint and refine, like, you know, healthy well-being. And I think that's a it's enjoyable. I find it quite fun to understand all these things too, and things like yin yoga. I make sure I have my regular dose of that, and I know that's great for my liver and that's great for creativity. I when I wake up in the morning, I try to do my 15 between 10-15 minutes of meditation, and then if I have time in the middle of the day, I'll do 7 minutes of qigong, um, and I try and get the light as much as possible, and then, you know, I try and um, compose for as long as I can, or just play. And so, yeah, I know it's been really interesting, learning curve to understand all these different elements that can help you enhance a good night's sleep.
I have sometimes patients, teenagers that enroll in extracurricular activities like music. They're either learning a musical instrument or in a choir. And I hear that the practices are very early, because they have to continue the regular routine schedule. And this was before the pandemic, of course, but the practices could be 6 in the morning, even 5 in the morning. I am tempted to ask you, what advice would you give to these patients? Because I do want people to develop their talents. And I always tell their parents, is the child going to be able to go to bed at 7 o'clock to get enough sleep to wake up at that time at 7 o'clock at night to get enough sleep? Um, or would you recommend these classes to be done extracurricular after school? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's true.
How
It's
can
like,
I better help them?
yeah, well, it's interesting what we were talking about before with the light as well, because, when I was a kid, we weren't aware of a lot of this knowledge. And so, um, of course, when you're younger, when you're a child, you're just conditioned, you're told by your teachers, and people around you and at school that, oh, you must start practicing early because they told you that that's the best time. But what they didn't tell you was get the light into your eyes before you do that, perhaps. um, and maybe that'll help you become more effective when you're sleeping and memorize even better so you don't have to cram before your exam. I mean, I look back and I think, wow, I wonder if I could have saved time because when I was a child, I was practicing 8 to 10 hours a day before concerts and when I had lots of competitions. And you don't really think about, well, shall I go and play in the garden maybe at 5:30 before my 6 a.m. practice starts because I've got to go to school, or whatever. So I think that with that knowledge, of course, I would be spreading that. I tell my friends' kids, they're starting them off quite early, and I'm like, okay, and they said, oh, it's really hard. We've got to sit there and watch them. They get out of bed and they start practicing the violin. I've got to sit there and listen, and I'm learning so much about the violin too. Like, make sure they get their light before they start practicing. It will make them much more effective. And also to take breaks because of course, it's so unhealthy to sit there for 4 to 5 hours. But sometimes it's not out of like a just pure discipline to do that. It can be quite enjoyable. Sometimes I think it's been 2 hours that I've been sat at the piano, and it could have been 4 to 5 to 6 because I'm just, if I'm in a zone, if I'm in a flow, I just keep going. And if I start writing a piece of music, it's really hard for me to to get away from it. Sometimes I have to cancel interacting with friends or social occasions because I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just in the middle of a flow. I need to continue, not realizing it previously, um, that actually maybe it would have been good for me, and maybe I would have finished that composition later that evening because I would have had that burst of energy, and like a positive. Maybe I would have, like, neuroactivity would have taken place, and like. Sorry, it's my cuckoo clock goes off on the hour every hour. It's going to stop soon. It's not a real cuckoo clock. It's a wooden German handmade thing from my
Oh, I
best.
love those. The ones
It
that have the hanging. Yeah, I love those.
so cute, aren't they? So my friend, she moved to Germany, and she said, there's an old man at the end of my street. He makes them. And so she gave it to me for my birthday. And then it's been 2 years since she moved. She said, you never ring me. You never call me. I said, are you kidding? I said, you're always in my mind every hour,
Every
of
hour.
hour, every hour, whether I'm recording or not, you're always there. It's stopped now. Um, but yeah, that is definitely something that now that I have the knowledge, of course, I will try and promote to everyone. It's just anything that you can do to expand, your expand your brain. Of course, I mean, why? But I think it's because that people don't have that knowledge, and so they're not acting upon that. It's like we're so conditioned to think, let's do this for 4 to 5 hours, and we're going to get so much better at it. But actually, what if you could get even better if you
Exactly. Exactly.
understood fully the importance of, like, your sleep and all the things around it that benefit that.
Exactly. And to see that there are so many things that affect people. Like, I think that just in today's conversation, we have mentioned so many things light, exercise, activity, diet. I love the one that you shared that you do qigong every morning. I took some classes in which we had to do qigong every morning, and I felt so energized. I mean, that's the principle that you move your energy, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you know better, but
and
I,
back again. Yeah.
yeah, we don't do that, and we do not really talk to people to integrate all these important areas and have people going out and moving, exercising, and incorporating all of these things. One question, Rosie, are you doing what are you doing for World Sleep Day that is new for you?
Well, I'm really excited to share that my second single from my forthcoming album, Sonic Apothecary, is being released. The track is called Water is Life, and I have especially composed that music within mind um, to help induce states of sleep. So I look forward to sharing that with everybody, and I hope it offers a window of calm. I've really explored and researched as much as I can. Of course, I'm still learning now, and hope to keep speaking with you and keep understanding more, so that I can help this journey of like trying to contribute to healthy well-being, and to stimulate anything that helps, yeah, induce a good night's sleep. And although there are so many elements and so many variables, what I know best is music. And so if I can use my skill and my craft to contribute to for a greater purpose, then it is immensely rewarding for me.
And we appreciate it. I mean, it's just really wonderful that you are using your talents and your gifts to contribute to the well-being of the world, participating in this event and in all the other areas that you already have started doing it before this event.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope so. Well, it's this continued, I think also it's this continued dialogue between musicians and scientists, and like creating a think tank. And this communication is so important, and a real privilege as an artist to be able to speak to you, to someone who is such an expert, leading expert in this field, is really, really great to know, to get to understand the roots of this, and the the science behind it.
Thank you, Rosie. I think I feel the same way, the privilege of talking with you and learning from you. We always are learning from what people are contributing with different areas. It's impossible for one area to just cover it all. Like we in medicine try to contribute with our science and our medicine, but we have to partner with people who are contributing in other areas. And in this case, you with music.
So
Okay, well, we'll keep in touch. I really, wish you really success, a lot of success, way more success, but I wish you all the best with your new concert and your album. Thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun. And additional information and resources about sleep are available at www.worldsleepday.org. We have also recommendations for healthy sleep, educational videos, and examples of activities. Thank you so much.
thank you.